Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and in this episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show, we talk about the revised Ranger that's coming out this month, or the Ranger errata, I should say, as well as building encounters to your players' weaknesses as opposed to their strengths. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan, with a silent PH in the middle, and I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over there at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Hoping we're going to have a good morning, trying to fix all those weird internet problems. Stick with us.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out Lucian's connection. His connection is excellent, but he's getting hiccups or something. So you can also try and catch us on YouTube. I'm streaming. We're trying out an experiment today to try and grow the channel. So we're also streaming on YouTube, and then I'm streaming it there. And usually I'm the one that has the problems. So it's kind of like, I'm not sure what exactly is going on. Also, I've got a terrible cold. I say terrible. I'm functioning quite well, but like I am so tired and out of it. So if I space out today, I apologize. Yes. So this is the Saturday Morning D&D Show, where we talk about all things Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games in general. The goal of which is to talk about our own games and hopefully figure out what it is we did wrong, what we can improve upon as Dungeon Masters. And it's just kind of a thought experiment, if you will, on how to become a better Dungeon Master overall. So, yeah. So thank you guys for chatting with us and coming out and watching us live. We got quite a few people at YouTube, more than I thought we would. So thank you guys for coming out.
Hello, YouTubers.
Hello, YouTubers and Twitchers. It's so awesome. Now I've got two chats to watch and Lucian's face, so it doesn't look like I'm going back and forth. So this will be interesting and fun.
Yeah, I always worried about like when Jordan's talking, I'm trying to keep an eye on the stream, so it sometimes feels like I'm not listening to him, but I'm listening, but I'm trying to watch all the things that are going on in the background. But so you get conscious about, oh wait, I'm not looking at the camera enough. I'm not looking at that.
Too funny.
But yeah. And another thing we do with the show is typically we like to go over whatever news we could scrape up or scrounge around on the internet, or things that just kind of popped up to us about that were D&D related, to bring to you guys just in case you had missed them. And that's usually where we start the top of the show off. And it was pretty big kind of thing that's been starting to make its way around. You can see it on Twitter a little bit. You can see some of the announcements coming. But we finally saw something about the revised Ranger, and then like the errata that's coming with the new printing of the new books, because not only are they bringing out the new books, but they're also doing the new covers and they're making all the corrections that they need to make. So this was the time they were going to go back in, and everybody had been speculating, are they going to change the Ranger at this point? And we've got a definitive at this point. If you watch the Dragon Plus show live on Twitch, or they put it on YouTube after that, Jeremy has talked about it at the very end of that video. They talk about that they are making two significant changes, but they are errata changes. They are what they consider corrections, not redesigns. And he kind of talks about that a little bit, that they're not going to use errata as a way to do new design or bring in or introduce new design. Errata is only ever for a correction for a mistake. And so he lists it as being the mistake that they're correcting. So that's like an admission that, they felt like there was a mistake, or there was a misinterpretation of the rules that was portrayed by the way they wrote it, and it wasn't their intention for it to be that way, and now they're making that correction.
Well, how many surveys have they done since D&D has come out, and how many times have people said like the Beastmaster Ranger is like the weakest class possible? And there are just little things. So it is interesting because we always talk about the revised Ranger. This isn't really a revised Ranger. This is an errata Ranger. Like they're fixing things. The Ranger is going to be the same. Like the Beastmaster Ranger core will be the same, but they're going to fix those different little aspects of it. And one of them being, I think, giving the pet magic attacks. So in the article I read, and I watched the video as well, but in the article I read, they talked about the monk having the ability to put ki into his fist to make his fist magical attacks, which bypasses a lot of resistances and things like that. They want to do the same with the Beastmaster pet. So the pet will have magical attacks at a certain level, which then will bypass the resistances that a lot of monsters have.
Yeah, they were saying it was the only class that he went back and found that didn't have a pathway to getting an attack that counts as magical. And as you get higher in level, more and more of those creatures require you to have a weapon that isn't just a slashing, bludgeoning, piercing weapon. It has to be something that counts as magical or it's immune. And there's so many of that stuff later on in the levels that all of the classes had pathways to get to something like that. But Ranger was the only one that didn't have an open pathway, especially the Beastmaster Ranger. So they put in like you said, a pathway for eventually. It doesn't start off that way, but it does get to a point where they get a feature that the pet that you have with you, the attacks it makes will count as magic, so that it stays in line with every other class that has that ability. The second thing they talked about was the way they had wrote if you don't give your companion or your pet a command, it kind of did nothing, right? So you were going to do all these things and you didn't give it a command. It just didn't do anything at that point. But then it would further read, if you get incapacitated, then the creature would act normally. So you're not giving it commands then and it acts normally, but you're alive and you're doing stuff. And then it's just a wooden figure next to you. And they felt like that was not the intention of the original rules. And so what they did is they made a little tweak, and they said, if you've not given your pet a command, it automatically takes the dodge action. So it automatically tries to defend itself enough that it's getting disadvantages on attacks. So it's a little bump. It's a little change. I don't know if it's the change that everybody wants or thinks that the Beastmaster needs to become a more powerful class, but it definitely shores up the two starting problems with Beastmaster, which were those two areas that were definitely keeping it lacking. But I don't think it really addressed the pet not leveling or scaling throughout the 1 to 20 leveling. That I think is what most people were trying to point out, is that this creature doesn't scale. It's a bear when it starts, it's a bear when it ends, and we're at level 20. How is that going to really work?
Let's talk about that. So it does scale because you add your proficiency to its attacks and damage rolls. And its HP is 5 times your ranger level, I think. Or 4 times your ranger level, something like that. So if you have a bear that has an HP of 12, but you're a level 5 ranger, it's now actually has an HP of 20, which is not a lot compared to your level 5 ranger that probably has HP of in the 40s at that point, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe even 50s, yeah, because they're like a D10 for depending on your Constitution modifier. But I think giving the pet the dodge action if you don't do anything with it is good, because advantage and disadvantage is a +5. Like, I think somebody did the math once where if you have advantage, you're technically giving them a +5 to the roll. Excuse me, and I've got this cough because I'm sick. It's awful. So if your pet takes the dodge action, you're essentially giving it a +5 to its AC almost, which is pretty good. So for the lack of HP that they have, they do pretty well with the
AC bump.
Yeah, the AC part. Now that doesn't coincide with the problems that we originally had with the Beastmaster Ranger, where an enemy casts a fireball and all of a sudden your pet is dead instantly. And then not only is your pet dead, but you have to there's no reviving that pet. Like, you have to go out and find a new beast and tame it. And although that might be narratively really cool, I think the Beastmaster Rangers, you also get really attached to your pet. And so I liked the revised Ranger that they released, where the pet was kind of like like a spirit, and that after it did die, you could commune for 8 hours and make that spirit come back to you to help you fight again. I like that aspect. And so if there was a way where you could be like, no, if my pet gets knocked out, he's not dead, I just have to spend either my hit dice to bring it back during a short or long rest, or spend its hit dice to bring it back. I wish there was a mechanic like that. And who knows, there might be. Well, there is. Go ahead.
Well, sort of. It's called Find Steed for the Paladin, because
Well,
the Paladin has the exact same thing that brings a pet that can attack and do things and can do whatever, can be killed and then resummoned. Just like so, in a way, the Ranger needed the same mechanic the Paladin had with the Find Steed. Or even like when you're summoning creatures as a Druid, there's also the Conjure Animals spell, right? So that you can bring up 2 hit dice creature, you can bring up 2 hit dice creatures, or you can bring up like 8 quarter hit dice creature, whatever it might be. That's the same kind of mechanic too, where I think they could have used something like that for the Beastmaster pet, because I absolutely agree with you that the Beastmaster Ranger is somebody who gets attached to that companion and needs a way to be able to save that vulnerable companion for when that very evil DM that's out there decides to target it, because you keep using it for the help action or whatever it might be, just like they do with the wizards familiars, or they're always trying to, as a DM, we're always trying to target those things those sneaky players are trying to use to get some advantages on our combats. But and it crushes them when you do that. Like, you can see it in their eyes when you say, all right, well, creature number 4 targets your familiar, or creature number 4 targets your pet. And then all of a sudden you can see like this wall between you and that player, because now it's you against them, because you chose to target that thing. And why didn't you target me? Target me. I'm the player. Why are you going after my creature or my pet?
Yeah, and like I said, my wife plays the Beastmaster Ranger with her Fey Corgi, and she's made it very clear that I can kill her character, but I cannot kill that dog. Like, that dog must survive through the whole encounter.
You can kill the whole party. I will sacrifice all of them.
Yep, that's 100%. But that dog must survive, because we do not do that to our puppies. So no, it's funny.
We had that. That happened in our Tomb of Annihilation game. At some point, there was we came along a campsite, and there was a pack of wild dogs. And I'm the barbarian, and I'm always the guy running in and jumping in the fight. And they're like, okay, you see this pack of dogs, let's roll initiative. Okay, I win initiative. They're like, Racky, what do you do? And I'm like, I just stand there. And they're like, what do you do it? And I'm like, they're just dogs. We're not, what's wrong? Why aren't you attacking? I'm like, I'm not attacking dogs. It's not happening. I didn't do it at all. So our other character went and took care of the dogs. I'm just like, oh, I'm not doing that.
That's funny. So I don't know if I can announce this yet, but I'm going to announce it anyway. So I'm going to be on an Extra Life stream next weekend, I think.
Was he in chat? Sometimes, most of the time he's in chat.
I don't know if he is. See him. Yeah, but I'm going to be on an Extra Life stream, and they were like, what do you want to play? And so I'm going to play a Beastmaster Ranger, and we'll see. Maybe I'll talk to him and say, hey, can we try out this new errata stuff? But I've always wanted to play Yuan-Ti Ranger with a snake companion. And so you're just kind of like double snakes. And then the Yuan-Ti can talk to snakes, so you can talk to your familiar and things like that. So that's my goal. Is I'm going to try it out and play this Yuan-Ti Ranger for an Extra Life campaign. I'll probably get unlucky and be the guy that's streaming at like 2 a.m, because it's one of those 24-hour events. Yeah. But yeah, I'll throw it up on my channel at some point, so you guys can see. I hope you
go full Yuan-Ti. We had one player that's picked that so far in a campaign I ran, and she nailed the accent with emphasizing the S's and everything. So I hope you hammer down the Yuan-Ti voice and the Yuan-Ti accent that you give it. And then just the fact that you just said in this stream, which makes it the best stream so far, our best episode ever, 42, is that you said double snakes. I'm going to have double snakes in that game. I just think that's as funny as that's awesome.
The Chaotic Magnet on YouTube actually had an interesting thing. Dodge also gives you advantage on dex saves. So that fireball could give him, you could have advantage on dex saves for your pet snake.
Yeah. And I think that's big. I think that's a good change. It's a way to start leveling the playing field. I don't know if that stops all of the surveys that go out and they say, okay, Beastmaster's fixed, let's move on to whatever the next class is. But it's a step in the right direction for sure. Like, it's an obvious positive step the right way.
No, I hope that, well, they're going to do this, so it's cool. Like, that's awesome. Go ahead and do this. But my hope is that they will actually revise the Beastmaster Ranger in whole and release it as like a free supplement to be like, here's another path that you could take to play Beastmaster Ranger if you want. And I think that's kind of what they're in line, but they don't, I don't know, is it a pride thing? They don't want to really admit that they're wrong, or do they just want to make it fit within the current game dynamics? It's probably a little bit of both, maybe. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think, you know, they might not see it as, it's not broken in the way that it's unplayable, I guess is the thing. And so when they get feedback that says it's broken and that's so loud, that's not necessarily true. I'm not on the side of those people. But for the people that are saying it definitely feels less than some of the other ones. But we kind of had this talk with Champion, and
right.
I mean, you were pretty adamant. Your player liked playing Champion. They liked the way it is. You think it's fine. And I felt like, to me, it was like, I'm raising the pitchfork because I think it's not great. So maybe they have that same view of the Ranger in that instance. They're kind of like on your side of that. No, it's pretty good. There's players out there that will enjoy it. Sure, it's not, you know, we're not rating them on most powerful and least powerful, but it's a viable character to play and it can be fun. So maybe that's kind of the route they're coming down. And not every character is going to be mega powerful from the min-maxer, you know, standpoint.
Yeah. No, for sure. I don't know. I guess it's because like my wife plays the Beastmaster Ranger, and I like classes that have pets. Like if I ever play a wizard, I try to get the Find Familiar feat spell. But yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for it, so I hope that it grows up, I guess.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the next major type of class they release is not just subclass of something else, but major class would be a definitive pet class that has subclasses, and they're basically divided up on different types of pets that you could have. So you could have like maybe someone who summons demons to fight for them, or you might have somebody who summons ghosts, or somebody who uses spirit guardians and things like that, or somebody who uses totems, and somebody who uses, you know, all these different things that you could consider to be some type of pet interaction could be great for an overall class that is named in some way, you know, the pack master or something like that, that then has all these subclasses of real animals and fantastic animals and Pokemon animals and, you know, whatever you want to get into at that point. I think it'd be really cool because they are my favorite too. Like when I play an MMO online in a computer game, I always gravitate to the pack classes. I always want to play them because I'm a collector of those little things. I love going around and collecting the new ones and getting the cool companions to run around with me while I'm doing my quests and doing my things. And I think that's a valid play style that lots of people would like to try. I'd like the whole game to everybody have a pet. Let's all have because everybody wants to run around with like griffins as their mounts. And like when you think of epic D&D, that's what you think about, right? You think about these cool things that you got, or like the Waffle Crew has a pet owl bear, which I always bring up because I think it's really cool that they have something like that. In a D&D world, you would have somebody that has something like that. Or the bad guys always seem to have a pet dragon to send after you. How come the players can't get a pet dragon? Right? You know, it's just so I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, gosh, I had a thought. Oh, wasn't it the Unearthed Arcana where they had the Puppet Master Bard? And they had like a little puppet that could like walk around and do stuff for them. I was all about that. I'm like, I want to play a Puppet Master Bard so bad and have like a little, and then you could also, or maybe this was a homebrew that I was reading. I can't remember, but like, I just remember you could control your puppet, or you could send out these invisible strings and try to control other players or enemy players and like make them walk certain directions or things like that. It was a really neat idea for a class, and I was hoping that it would become more. I think it was an Unearthed Arcana. I don't know.
That would be a cool kind of puppet master character. Would be super cool.
Maybe it was too much like Naruto, but I really liked the idea of it.
Yeah. Oh God, I've been watching so much of that right now that my brain is all about that because I just started. I had never seen it before, and I've just binged watched seasons 1 through 6 of it. So now I want to do D&D versions of it.
That sounds awesome.
So the other thing news wise,
yeah, go ahead.
I walked into my game store. Shout out to my local game store of Fanfare to get all of my gaming accessories and cool stuff. And I placed my order for my Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. I did ask them there if it was going to have an alternate cover, and they said there was something about a pre-order, so they think this one's going to have an alternate cover. And the only reason that I was wondering is because when I went and bought Dragon Heist, they released that one with no alternate cover. So yeah. It was weird to me because I was getting.
They haven't advertised an alternate cover for Ravnica, so
there might not be one.
Yeah.
But I told them I wanted it if it was coming to the stores first, because you can get your book in the mortar and brick stores usually several days before it goes to Amazon, if that's the way you're ordering it. So as a way to promote, your game stores and your local hobby. So I always go to that game store and I always put it in, and then I try to get it. And if you do that, sometimes you can get the alternate covers, whereas you can't get them supposedly typically anywhere else. But we'll see. I have my book on order. I'm not doing Dungeon of the Mad Mage because I want to get that on Roll20. We talked about that a little bit last week because I want to have it so that I can run it eventually. I want to be able to run the modern day mega dungeon. I'm looking forward to that. And then news wise, the only other thing is Gamehole Con is next weekend, and I'm going to be there, and we're going to try to see if we can do something. And there's a bunch of D&D people there. Like I was looking online. I think I'm going to get into a Mike Merle's game.
Oh, nice.
I'm seeing. It does a weird thing about pre-ordering tickets, but beyond that, I'm going to be there, and Perkins and Merle's and most of the D&D people, Kate Welch, Satine, Rudy's going to be there. Trying to think
of where is Gamehole Con?
Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So it's kind of the home of, sometimes I think the home of D&D is considered to be Wisconsin, where Gary Gygax had lived and the company was. So it's always gets, I think, a pretty good D&D showing. But so I'm going to go there. But I know Monty Cook and all of them were bringing their games there. They're running games there. They're doing some live games there. I think can't remember if some of the critters were going to be there or not, if Critical Role had some people going. But when I was looking at the list, it was definitely a nice big list of people going. I think Nerdarchy's going to be there, and I also think WebDM said they were showing up. So It might be cool. We'll see some of those guys when we get there too.
Well, talk to all those guys, Mike Merles, everybody, and see if they want to be guests on a certain Saturday morning D&D show that airs Saturday mornings. So maybe we can get them to come on the show.
The cartoon could sponsor us. We could go on right before the cartoon starts.
Oh yeah. No, super fun. Man, I want to go. I had somebody ask me if I was going to PAX Unplugged, and I live on the opposite side of where all this cool stuff is happening. But you would think more of it would happen on the West Coast because of Wizards of the Coast is on the West Coast, but instead it's like, no, we're going to go to Gen Con, and PAX Unplugged is going to be in Pennsylvania, and this one's going to be in Wisconsin. And I'm like, it's so far away.
Yeah, you get all the early ones because you get normal PAX, and then you get TwitchCon was right over there near Seattle.
True. TwitchCon. No, TwitchCon was in California, I think.
Did they move it? Usually it's up north.
I want to say that it was in San Jose or San something. I can't remember. I didn't pay attention other than my entire Twitter feed was at TwitchCon, and it was crazy. So they had a lot of fun. But yeah, Lucian, did you play any games this week? What's going on with your games?
We played some games. Monday night, our crew ran through some more of the Seeking Revenor mega campaign, West March's game I'm playing. It was pretty fun. They went through a town, or they went back to the Black Pyramid, fighting some creatures that really originate from AD&D, the first, or basically early edition Dungeons and Dragons, and that I've converted for 5th edition, and they did pretty good. They fought a really nice epic battle, and then they used a town scroll portal, kind of Diablo-esque style, to go back home. They all made 3rd level, which is cool, so they're the highest level of the characters at this point in the campaign. So it's slowly moving on, which is perfect because I'm still waiting for my Matt Coville's Strongholds and Followers book, which I wanted to use in this campaign, but since it's not out yet, they can't use any of that stuff, but that's okay because they're only 3rd level, and most of that stuff is going to be like when they're around 8th, 9th, and 10th level when they decide to build a keep or something like that. So that's working out, and I'm enjoying that. The one new thing that I'm thinking about that I'm going to add to my Revenor campaign, this is what's going to get all confusing, is I'm going to add a dab of Ravnica to Revenor. So I'm going to put a place there where the 2 worlds overlap. So I'm not going to necessarily make a campaign for Ravnica, but there's going to be an area that somehow the dimensions are, or the split between the dimensions, or however I come up with it physics wise, there's this gap there where a part of Ravnica exists in Revenor that you can get to and interact with. And maybe it's almost like a doorway back and forth between the two. And I think that'll be a cool way for me to incorporate that book that I've been super excited about. And we already have a Loxodon in our campaign, and there's no backstory as how in the world did a Loxodon even get to the Forgotten Realms at this point. So we're going to be able to add some of that in. And I'm just excited about being able to add all these really fantastic things into the campaign. So that was super fun. Pretty fun game. They're going to go back again on Monday night and continue to see how far they can get in this big black pyramid to see what's going on, or who owns it, or what's going on. Tuesday night was my Tomb of Annihilation, my Adventure League game. This is season 8 now, rules that we're using. My character is a barbarian who's 7th level. I'm playing in it, not the DM. Anarsis is the DM and runs a great game for us with Anarsis and PB and Noctua. And we constantly are getting in fights that we're nearly dying and TPKing every time, but we always seem to pull it out right at the end. And the one interesting thing that happened in this that I thought we would talk about a little bit were Sioux monsters. Have you fought any Sioux monsters in your campaign yet?
What? No, I don't even know what a Sioux monster is.
You're going to have to look it up at some point. It's kind of like a demonic looking monkey, right? And they're nasty creatures that appeared off of an altar and attacked us because we had to show our worthiness to get something and to fight these things. So we were going to fight them. Well, they have an ability that is like a stunning gaze kind of ability that if you don't make a DC 11 check, you're stunned for a minute. So let's get this for a second.
Do you get to repeat saves, or are you just stunned? Okay.
Yes. But being damaged does not pull you out of being stunned.
Oh, okay.
So 5 of these creatures popped up. The first one stuns the guy who's right in front of him. And then immediately the other 4 just start wailing on my character. The only good thing about this is I'm a barbarian, and I think my hit points are up to 75 at this point at level 7. Just really good hit point. And I wasn't even raging yet because it hit me before I raged, which is obviously always the problem of the barbarian, is that I get hit before I'm raged. And I got stun locked in a D&D game. And to me, it's one of those areas where a player can start to get salty super quick with what's going on when round after round, and I failed like 3 or 4 of these rounds. I failed and I couldn't do a thing. Like you can make it at the end of your turn. So your turn goes all the way through, and then at the end of that turn, you're allowed to make another DC check to see if you pass it. And I got nailed, and it was crazy. So stun lock, and it's one of those words that nobody likes in computer games. And if you're talking about competitive online games where you have this ability to stun another player, that's always a contentious point for how long it happens, and can it happen over and over and over? Is there diminishing effects? Because it wasn't even, here's the other thing, is like a lot of those things say once you've made the save, this thing can't happen to you again for another 24 hours, right?
Right.
There's lots that this apparently didn't have that written in there. So not only would the first one fail, but then I would make the first one, then the second one would hit me, I would make it, the third one would hit me, I would make my roll, but by the fourth one, you're not making 4 of those rolls in a row, I get stunned, and it was just over and over and over. So taking away that player agency. Have you ever had that happen in your campaign, or would you have done it as a DM? Would you target a single player, you have 4 creatures that can stun. Do you keep trying to get the same one? Do you spread it around?
I think it depends on how intelligent I want to make the monsters. So if there's very much like, we need to take out the barbarian because he's going to do the most damage, I would probably direct a lot of the stuns to that. But in situations like that in the past, I've rolled randomly. You know, it's like I've got 4 players. I roll a d4. Sorry, you're getting hit. You know, and roll it like that just to randomize it and to keep it fair, so that if something terrible does happen, the players don't necessarily say, Jordan, you're being a little too, you know, evil with us. And it's like, it's all just dice rolls, guys. Like, I'm rolling out in the open here. So.
Yeah, and I think I try to make a pretty conscious effort not to. I try to play like you said, you play the character as smart as you think they would be. You would do the things you think they do, but I'm not necessarily saying, how do I beat my players using this? Like, because I could try to find a way to go, okay, I know their hardest hitting person is the wizard in the back. I'm just going to make sure I melt him first with everything I've got. And then my creatures are going to turn on their cleric and make sure they melt the cleric down. Just ignore the fighter that's hitting them or the, you know, whatever.
Right.
Because I know what their party weaknesses are, and somehow the creatures then know what our party weaknesses are, or you know what's going on too. So I try to stay away from that a little bit, but I think it's one of those things where you've got to be super careful, and I'm glad there's not a lot of places for this to happen. But I was surprised when it didn't have the blurb in the message for the creature that it said, once you make one of these rolls, you can't be stunned again for a certain amount of time. That surprises me that it could happen round after round, 4 and 5 of these things just hitting and hitting and hitting. And it felt very targeted, you know, as the person receiving it. It was like, oh, what's going on? And so in that battle, let's say that battle lasts for an hour and a half of your game time. That meant for an hour and a half of the game time, I wasn't able to do anything because of the way the rules were written. And that's, I think, one thing you never want to happen in your campaign, even if it's, yes, that's how the rules read, or even that's how it should be. Your character should always be able to try to do something or interact. They shouldn't be at the table for an hour and a half, not being able to do anything at all. Like, you have to avoid that as much as possible. And I think he's just doing Anaris is doing a really good job of playing Tomb of Annihilation the way it's set up and the way that it reads and the way that, you know, is presented, and trying to give us a challenge, which is, I get it, because you have characters that are all of a sudden, you know, 7th and 8th level, and it seems like they're unstoppable and they're almost like superhero. So you have to kind of go to those extremes to really challenge them at times. Just like the frog Hemoth fight and all these other things that we've had. They're big fights. In fact, earlier in that session, at some point, I get hit with an arrow from some creature that's in this place that we happen. I'm trying not to spoil too much. And somehow it does 127 points of damage from a single arrow. And I'm like, and so my barbarian who has 75 hit points goes down. I'm just like, man, this just seems like it's perfectly suited for taking my character down. What is going on here?
That is funny.
Not that it killed the party, but all of a sudden you just get one hit and you're like, okay, you're down. Okay, let's let the rest of the session go.
Well, and so talking about, I don't know, playing a creature's tactics or something, like, I guess a creature or these things that stun you, they don't know the party's capabilities. So again, I would play it like, if they saw the bard use healing word and get somebody up, then I would be like, they know that bard can do that. We need to take out the bard before we can kill the rest of these guys permanently, and have them like gang up on the bard or I don't know, run away. I've been reading a lot of Dungeon Crawl Classics lately, and they have a morale function, or a morale, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm so sick. My brain is not working. But they have morale. So if a bunch of creatures die or they get to half hit points, you roll to see what their morale is. And if their morale is bad, they run away from the battle because they know it's a losing battle. They won't fight to the death. Yeah. And you could use a similar thing with monsters in 5th edition. in that same category, like how intelligent are they? How are they like, attacking the players and stuff? But they also don't know the players' capabilities, which makes big bad end guys that kind of show up, attack the party and run away, makes them really, really a difficult challenge the third time they meet, because they know, like, I'm going to kill this cleric and then I'm going to go after this barbarian, and I'm only going to use magic on the barbarian and not physical attacks because he's raging, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Like that makes for a really interesting encounter, I think. So.
Yeah, and I like that setup of it, and I encourage the game masters and dungeon masters out there that are listening to use that idea of, once the players show what they can do, then reacting to it intelligently would obviously be something they do. But try to corral yourself if you get that surprise round with your creatures and you have all 6 of them to be doing things that you might not know this party's already capable of. Like, you don't know what this weird mix of people standing in front of you are ready to do, except for your own DM kind of metagaming knowledge. And really it comes down to, in a way, it's the metagaming discussion, but it's happening on the DM side of it, because the DM has more knowledge than the creatures actually would.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because we want to challenge our parties or we want to have a good hard encounter, we use some of that knowledge, and sometimes they metagame too. And I mean, if you got this, that's like a huge can of worms to open when you start talking about the metagame discussion. What's good, what's bad.
Yeah.
What can, that's like a full show on its own. But it starts to get into that metagaming is not only from a player standpoint, but it can also be from a DM standpoint. So you want to be really careful, I think, about your style of playing. So just at least think about it, where you're coming from with it. And I like the way Jordan presented it, as far as, if the players show their strengths and their weaknesses, then having creatures act on those is great. But if they haven't shown any of that stuff yet, maybe those creatures, I like the idea. And I do the same thing with the roll. Like, we had arrows shooting out. The creatures ran down some stairs to get away from where the players were. And they were just going to lob arrows up at disadvantage, couldn't really see, but they wanted to lob a wave of arrows up to keep the players from just running down and getting to them. And so instead of me saying, okay, well, I'm just going to use disadvantage and all the arrows are going at the paladin, or this person that's the lowest hit points, just in case I hit one and I can take one down. The reality is I just rolled a dice to say, who did this go after? Who is the person that's going to make the AC that I'm going to use for when this arrow comes flying at you? And that way, like you said, it's not me, it's the dice if all hell breaks loose and the healer goes down and everybody dies. And it was like, no, it was the dice. That was all random. I did the same thing with the ghost when it took possession of characters, because the ghost can incorporate itself inside the player, and the only way to get it out is to put that player down. So instead of me strategically picking who I should do, I rolled dice to say who's the next person that's going to go after. And maybe the person that's closest has like a 1 and a 2 on a D6, but maybe the people are further away have the 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then I roll it. And then I'm like, okay, well, I rolled a 2, so it's going after the cleric. You guys are going to have to kill your own cleric to get the ghost out of them, type thing. And that's what happened, actually. But it was nice that they knew it wasn't just me, just like, okay, I'm going to get your cleric, I'm going to get your healer, and then I'm going to come after the rest of you guys. It was like, it was just the ghost doing its ghost thing. So.
As a dungeon master, I love that, because because I don't know, like, there's a certain sense of guilt when you kill a player or when you are putting them in an unfavorable situation. Like, my players fought and this is from Tome of Beasts, I think, but it's called a Horde Golem, and it's basically a big treasure pile golem. And as they attack them, it strips away magic items from them. Like, they roll, and there's a chance that they didn't hold on to their magic sword because the golem is like absorbing magic items into it. And as a dungeon master, I'm like, that's really mean to take away this advantage that they've had. But when I can just say, like, no, it's part of the monster, and you guys roll randomly to see if it, and it's attacking you, then all of a sudden my players are just like, oh, okay, it's the dice. Jordan, yes, Jordan threw this monster at us, but at the same time, it's the dice. It's not him. And I feel so much better as a dungeon master being able to, I guess, like, blame the dice and not me.
Yes.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah, yeah. And that's I think why like death saves was a good thing where the players get to roll the death saves, because then it becomes that idea that maybe your character goes down because of something that I did as a DM, but you have your 3 death saves, and if you make them, you're back up. If you roll a 20 in any one of them, you're up and fighting. If you roll high enough, you stabilize and you don't die. And if you roll 3 really bad ones, well, it was on you. You had some chances there. Your
Yeah.
party had some chances to get you back up. And if they didn't, that's on the party of you dying. It's no longer it was on the DM that killed you. It was
Right.
my party didn't get. Why didn't the cleric cast healing word on me for 3 rounds? I had to make the. It's just that. Then it's all over on them.
Yeah. And then, well, so this is another conversation point, I guess. Like, Matt Colville did a video on killing PCs.
Yeah, let's
and
kill a PC.
He was saying basically it's unsportsmanlike to attack a player that is unconscious, because an unconscious player, if you attack them, they take damage and it's an automatic death saving throw failure. Yeah. So is there a situation where you would do that? Like, other than like I cast a fireball or something, like, would you pull punches to be like, well, I don't want to give them another excuse to, or another, like, let's roll this. But from a monster perspective, it kind of makes sense to be like, I want to finish this guy off. And I've always struggled with that, I guess, because it does feel unsportsmanlike, because you want them to have their 3 chances to get up.
Yeah. To me, the character going unconscious to all of the creatures in my world has the exact appearance of death to them. They assume they've killed that character when it happens.
Right.
So at that point, I always have my creatures turn and then begin to engage the rest of the dangers of whatever's going on. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's a time where I've put a character down and then said, well, the guy decides to step on your throat.
Yeah.
Because he knows you're still breathing.
He picks up your head and does one of these, snaps your neck, just to make sure,
Yeah, I don't think I've done it. Now, could a very bad super villain guy do it? Because I really wanted to get to my players, maybe, but it would be, I would have to make sure that I knew my group could handle it, and it would have to be with a player. Like, I could probably do it with Graybeard from my group, and you've played with Graybeard before. He would probably let me get away with it without hating my guts for the rest of eternity. But not all players are going to let that happen, and I don't ever want a game of D&D to stop one of my really good friendships over. Like, if I just put a stake through PB's heart, or I put a stake through Jordan's heart, they might not want to play games with me anymore because, I went after him like that. The only person I think I could get away with it would be Graybeard. So I guess if maybe I had a villain that really wanted to do a gut punch to the party, and I had them not only put Graybeard's character down, then pick him up, like you said, and said, snap the neck in front of everybody and be like, that's it. That was your last death save, Graybeard. You don't get it. He's probably the only one that I think could handle it, but I'd have to be super careful with who I did that with.
And you're right. Like, a pack of wolves are not going to sit there, and they're going to go after the next threat. This guy's no longer a threat. He's down. I'm going to go after the next person that's a threat. But you're right. If you wanted to make a villain like stand out a whole bunch, that would be pretty epic to like raise this, like, he's got 1 death saving throw left, and the villain holds him up by the neck and then runs a sword through him to finish him off for good. But that's no different than a villain using like a disintegrate ray, which if you get to 0 hit points being hit by the disintegrate spell, you're gone, And so that beholder just killed you outright. More or less, you forfeit all of your death saving throws. So,
yeah. Indoor Adventure asked about what about massive damage that happens to a character that was already low. So maybe they're down to like 1 point,
right?
And then all of a sudden they get hit by like a 30-point something. It's funny that it has never come up in my game that we've had to use the massive damage rule to outright kill a character.
I've never had that either. For whatever reason, even like level 1 or 2s, I've never seen that. You know?
It's never popped up. I'm fully prepared to use the rule if it does in answer to your question, but at this point, it's never come up in any of the campaigns where one of the characters received, because I think it's like more than half of what your maximum damage would have been in that fight, or in that hit that puts you down. So like if you're I don't know. It seems like we've done the math and it never happened. The first time we had to do the math that I've ever seen, I wasn't the DM, but was when my barbarian got hit by the 124 damage arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at my hit points where at 75, and we went to the rule to see, wait a minute, did I just get killed outright by a single arrow, one shot, didn't see it? And we're like, no. I went unconscious. Yeah. I mean, I was like, oh, thank God. I got to make my death saves.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's crazy.
Oh, LB. So LB, it happened in your Waterdeep game. Oh, no. To LB, that's funny. She can handle it because she likes making characters. But I could see it being a tough thing because that's a lot of damage for somebody to take all at once while they're already down. But, you know, like you said, if somebody's unconscious and a fireball hits the room, that's going to be pretty significant. Somebody's might not come out. So I thought that was the big thing off the Tuesday game that I knew we could have a really good discussion about was not only the stun lock, but the idea of taking away that player agency and being careful about how you run your character. So I knew it would be something good that we'd get a lot of good discussion with. And you guys are doing great in chat. Definitely for you YouTubers and Twitch people that if you watch it after the fact and you go to YouTube and you watch the video, to put it down then in the comments what you think about how you run it too, because we're always learning. We're always checking in with all of our other game masters and dungeon masters out there to help us figure out how we do stuff too.
And Lucian and I are really active in the comments. So you can totally shoot us a message and we'll read it and respond 100%.
Yeah. And so finishing off my week of on Friday, I did get to do some proofreading of a very cool adventure that all of you are going to get to play, or at least if you want to play, you're going to be able to see at some point, but I'll let our special guest author talk about that in just a moment. And then Saturday, today, I think after this show, at some point today, I am going to make a video that's thanking all of the subscribers to my YouTube channel, which I just made the 500 subscriber limit, which was super cool. And I think I was just going to make a nice, fun video for that. I think everybody says thank you to their community. And I think it's a really cool thing to acknowledge that people come to your channel and are willing to watch you do some stuff, just like all these people here in chat, which was super cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So that is my week. Now, next week, I am all over the place, so it's going to have a really weird schedule. So just stay tuned on Twitter for what we're going to try to do for next Saturday's show and see if we can actually pull it off. Keep an eye out for that. We're going to do some testing.
Might be a solo show, might be Jordan finds a guest show, or it might be Lucian live from a convention. And I think that's the best option, but we have to make sure the technology will hold up for that. So so what did Jordan do? It sounds like he's sick. So we knew he got sick from somewhere this week, but what did Jordan do this week in role-playing games? Well, I had to cancel Hotsprings game because I was like super sick, and I'm really sad about it because like D&D makes me happy. And I was just sitting there. I think I was watching your game because your game's on Tuesday night. And so I was home watching your game because I'm just like, well, I can't play Hotsprings Island. I guess I'll just watch Lucian play his games. And I'm like, oh, looks like he's having a lot of fun. Cough, hack, wheeze. Wish I was playing D&D.
Downvote.
Be that awful guy in the comments. Like, what? No, kind of on the coattails of what you were talking about. And I want to put a disclaimer out because Nathan, I believe, is watching right now, and he is one of my Hotsprings Island players, and he also runs a game on Sunday that I occasionally play in when my other Sunday game can't meet. So basically an extra weekend game that we try to fit in, and he's running a homebrew campaign, and he's doing a fantastic job, and I'm having so much fun. I'm playing a Warforged Eldritch Knight, and I've kind of rethemed all of my spells to be like robot-y things. So when he casts Featherfall, that's actually like vents coming out and slowing his descent, and when he does a bunch of other spells, it's all kind of like themed robot-wise, and we're having a lot of fun with it. But he made an off comment one day where he was just, because my guy has an AC of 21, my fighter, and he made a comment one day. He's like, I think I figured out how to get past your AC. And it got me thinking, like, do you, with your players, this is kind of on the topic of what we were already talking about, but like, do you, with your players, like try to exploit their weakness or let them succeed at the build that they're trying to do? So we'll use my AC for an example. Like, do you throw monsters at him where he gets to utilize his high AC and he gets to come away from the table feeling, look at this, like I was so awesome, nobody hit me, or like 4 people hit me, but I have such a high AC? Or do you do the opposite and you make your high AC character make nothing but dex saving throws so that he's able to like fail basically? And I don't know if that's like, I don't know.
I have a whole pack of those players playing my game right now. So I have the full-on min-maxers in my campaign. So I have to, I tell myself just to play it the way it is, because I'll tell you the way they've been doing it. Like, we have a elven blade singer whose AC gets up to something like 22 ridiculously.
Oh, yeah.
And then uses his first level spell slots for shield for anything that does get through, and casts like mirror image. And it's just like a ton of this stuff that I go through round after round after round of not hitting a character at all because their ACs are ridiculously high the way they've got it. And I have to tell myself not to try to come up with ways to do it. Now, I do at times when I'm crafting certain encounters that I think, hey, it'd be cool to do some of these encounters, I look for things that are going to challenge the party in a way that they haven't been challenged before. If they have a lot of high AC in the party, I may start looking for a ghost creature or something that mitigates a little bit of that for them to feel in danger at least that one time. But I also tend to then throw 2 or 3 of the next encounters are normal encounters that, their build is perfect for negating. Like, they are perfect for stopping an orc warband rush or whatever it is. And they need some of those to feel that that's working. And then I try to throw in one every now and then that's like, oh, you guys are really super good at this, but all of you need to make wisdom saving throws because this is the next thing that's about to happen type thing. So yeah, I like to throw in a little bit of that to keep them on their toes, but I think it's okay for them to come up with really cool builds and really powerful builds to make their way through this world that they're in, because I think that's what they would do. And that's how they feel powerful. And that's how they can do some cool things. And then I intersperse some stuff in there to keep them feeling the danger, feeling the edge of, oh, at any moment, this still could go sideways, even though I found a way to get my AC to 25 at level 3, or whatever it might be. And
I guess that's the thing. It's a healthy balance, and then players feel, because you don't want them to get overconfident. That totally makes sense. And then I'll just use an example. For example, in the last game that I played with Nathan, my DM, we fought some goblins that weren't I think it's goblin spelled backwards, Nilbog.
That is true.
And they have an ability, and I don't remember what book this is from. Maybe it's from Volo's Guide to Monsters, but they have an ability where you have to make a charisma saving throw before you're allowed to actually attack them, because they can like charm you. And granted, it was a mixture of Jordan has a low charisma and also he was rolling very poorly.
But 2 bad things.
2 bad things. But the mixture of that, we played for 3.5, maybe 4 hours. The entire game session, I didn't hit one creature in all of the fights that we had. So it was one of those things like I cast a spell, I cast a Thunder Wave, and I did some damage with Thunder Wave. But like other than that, I didn't land a single hit. And I remember leaving, like I was okay. I was like, oh, whatever. But I remember leaving kind of disappointed that I'm like, I didn't even hit anything. Like I've got this brand new sword and I didn't hit anything with my brand new sword. And
my thing is hitting. Like that's the thing I should be doing is hitting, and I didn't do any of that.
Yeah, and so it was one of those situations where I'm like, because of the monsters he chose and my bad luck, I wasn't able to kind of like utilize what my character is supposed to do. So and it happens at every table, but it was just an interesting feeling of like being on the player side of it, because I've been on the dungeon master side of it where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this monk is stunning every monster that I put at him. All right, the next 3 monsters are going to be immune to stun, because I am so tired of this being tired of them just like destroying everything by stunning the boss, and then they all gang up like ants on sugar and just destroy him because they have advantage. Anyway, that's another story. But it was weird being on the player side of it where I'm just like, okay, I see what he's doing. Kind of sucks that I'm not able to hit anything. So I don't know.
Yeah, that is funny, and I think it's something that I think we all run into. The idea, especially when you have players that are trying to really optimize their characters, and they get to a point where they found in the rules a way to mix a certain number of things together, whether it's feats and race abilities and classes that give this really ridiculously high AC, combined with somehow they're giving the creature disadvantage, and all of a sudden all your rolls seem like they're not hit. Like that's what happened in the big fight that they had last night on our Monday game, is that they all have heavy armor and shields and stuff, and they were all taking the dodge action so that they got disadvantaged, and they formed a shield wall up in the front of a corridor so nothing could get by them. So they weren't fighting, which was super smart. It's what you should do. And my creatures couldn't lay a finger on any of them. And it was just an inevitable fight that, went the wrong way. So in that case, they did the right job. They chose the right area to fight. They used their skills the best way they could, and it all worked out. But, the next time if they fight the rust monster or whatever it is, it's going to be very different for them, because all of a sudden, something else will happen. So I always like that higher level creatures usually have things to challenge the parties that's different, or things that they didn't think about, or like you said, saves that they have to make that mess with just their raw fighting capability. And I think what's important is, as a dungeon master or a game master, is that you don't forget those abilities, because me and you have had this conversation many times where we've had a cool creature encounter set up. It doesn't go through the way we thought it would. We go back and look, because at the time we were busy, we're running the game, and we totally missed a paragraph that said, oh, wait a minute, they've got 3 legendary actions, or, oh, wait, they can pass 2 of their saves anytime they, because we just miss a little blurb somewhere where that fight could have been totally different had we really been aware of the creature we were about to use and try to use it. And we've talked about that quite a bit. And so as our recommendation, even from that other discussion, was, definitely try to anticipate how to use those creatures in the encounter, not just how to use them against your party as if this thing knows exactly how to beat this one party, but just so that you're using all the abilities to its fullest potential, so that the encounter creature runs and feels like, the beholder actually plays like a beholder would. It's casting the spells, disintegrate things are going off, it's making saves due to legendary actions or whatever it might be, because it's your super boss or whatever, that it really plays in that epic kind of a fight scene.
Yeah, good discussion. I think with just to summarize, but I think like with everything, it's finding that healthy balance, and we basically have been saying that over and over again. But yeah, before we go, I wanted to talk a little bit about other things that are happening in my life. One is I have this book here, Mutant Crawl Classics. And I have 2 of these because my wife and my parents decided to not talk to each other about what they were getting me for my birthday. So I have 2 copies of this, which means I'm going to give one of them away. So if you are a patron on my Patreon, within the next week, I'm going to put everybody in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to roll some dice, and I'm going to take one winner, and I will mail them a copy of Mutant Crawl Classics. So not that I'm fishing for patrons or anything, but I wanted to have a thank you to my patrons on Patreon for supporting me and for supporting Forgotten Realms Explained and the Saturday morning D&D show. So I want to say thank you guys. So be on the lookout for that. And then Lucian was talking about it earlier, that he read a really cool adventure. I wrote a one-shot, and I wrote this one-shot probably like 6 or 7 months ago. It's been a long time. But I'm just now getting into the process of formatting it and making it look nice. But it's called Dragon on the Mount, and I've given it out to Lucian and Nathan and a couple of other people to kind of like peruse and give me feedback on. I'm actually going to run it again this Thursday for a group of players on Roll20, so I can get even more feedback. But I'm going to put it up on the DMs Guild. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'll charge $1, 50 cents or something like that. Pay what you want. I haven't decided yet. But be on the lookout for that. And then you guys can take that adventure and run it. And it's really fun. I ran Lucian through it, and a bunch of Indoor Adventure, I think, went through it. And we had a lot of fun, and it's just about a group of adventurers were hired to take care of a dragon that is terrorizing the town of Longsaddle in the Forgotten Realms. So it should be really fun. And this has been a really creative and new experience for me of writing a one-shot, or I've written a lot of one-shots and I've written a lot of adventures, but to actually put it into a format that is digestible for other people, like for other people to take and use. So I'm excited for, I don't know, just people to run this adventure and be like, that was really cool. So
yeah. And proofreading it was super fun. And just even in playing it, we had a lot of talks about after the fact that generated a lot of good talks about what did you think of this part? What did you think of pacing? What did you think of this? And it was really fun to go through. We had a great group. And it was one of those things that really inspired me to say, you know, I want to do that same thing too.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till we do some of that. So I want to see more of that. And you guys should definitely go check it out.
Yep. And then other than that, I've been reading so much Dungeon Crawl Classics because I have got a Dungeon Crawl Classics game coming up this November at some point with the original crew that I ran through, and I'm going to try and record that session, I think. Just like my Kids on Bike session, I'm going to try and record that and put it up on the the Saturday Morning D&D Show YouTube channel. Thank you, Jordan, for the words that are coming out of your mouth. And so if you guys are interested in Dungeon Crawl Classics or just not alternate versions of D&D, but like another tabletop RPG system that's kind of like Dungeons & Dragons, but cranked up to 11. I definitely recommend that you guys check that out. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you for our YouTubers that are watching us. It's really great to have you guys out here, and we're going to try and probably stream on both channels again to kind of diversify and get more people to watch. So that should be awesome. Anything else? Final thoughts, sir?
The word out there. We're glad to see so many people coming back to the shows. Definitely get in those comments and talk with us in those comments because we enjoy keeping the discussion going and try to tackle stuff, and that always helps everybody out. So can't wait till our next show. I'm really hoping option A works for next week because I think it will be super fun and fantastic for you guys to see, and I can't wait till we keep doing more stuff.
Yep. And for those of you on YouTube, I hit the wrong button at the exactly wrong time. So sorry about transitioning to the end of the show early, but we're back. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out, sharing these videos with a friend, and we just love it. So we have fun with the show every week, and we're excited that you guys have fun with the show every week. And with that, we will see you next week for another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show, a possibly special episode live from, what is it called?
Gamehole Con.
Gamehole Con, of all the names for a con.
Yeah.
But there you go. Thanks again, everybody, and we will see you in the next episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Goodbye.